everyone. The podcast that I chose to watch and talk about was a TED Talk podcast that I found. It's about humor and how humor is kind of a universal attribute that's appreciated throughout many cultures, different ages, etc. This podcast was specifically titled the Intercultural Guide to Humor by Peter Pluta. Peter is a psychologist whom studies the scientific effects of humor and its universal power of reducing stress and adding trust. He kind of specifically talks about how it allows for, strangers, being from the outside of a culture and encountering the inner group of another culture, how it can kind of alleviate that barrier of difference and kind of be transforming in that it brings folks together. They share an experience with humor, share a laugh, and it kind of lightens the mood and kind of is disarming. So, the author kind of talks about how he was, like years ago, he was hitchhiking with a friend and he came across a like a fellow in the woods. Like he ended up on his property in Romania, and the guy looked intimidating. He said that admitted that was his perception because he was a really big guy, large in stature, was wearing a track suit, and just was holding a stance that looked like "don't mess with me" type thing. So he had no choice, upon seeing him, but to approach him and say, he started off by just saying, "Do you sprechen du Deutsch? Do you, and then asking a few other questions, simple inquiries as far as language. And the guy, every time he asked, just shook his head firmly and kind of, he described it kind of arrogantly. So finally he asked one other version and the guy said yes, and they both had a laugh. So evidently he finally chose the right language. So that's kind of what it's about. It's just about the universal power of of humor, and how it's something that can be appreciated by all folks. The golden rule with humor is what one person might find as humorous, it might not be the same for another. So it's one of those where you want to develop communicational flexibility. That's kind of mentioned on, I believe it's page 65 of our text, knowing when and how to kind of insert yourself in a situation and to be able to kind of flow and kind of adapt with your environment and your social environment, namely. So universal attributes I mentioned, appreciated by all humans and all across cultures. Different ages appreciate humor. There's different types of humor: dry, silly, goofy, sarcastic, dad joke, corny type humor, fallacy finding humor, pointing out idiosyncrasies and finding that humorous, as well as satire. The power of humor, he kind of mentions, can transform strangers into friends. And really, and if you look at it, the whole entire world, we're all humans, we're all, in likeness, but we have different cultures that kind of separate us. But, are we all really all that different? I mean, yes and no. Of course, that's what we're learning about in class, but, how different cultures are different. So page 70 also mentions the deep structure involves the conscious and unconscious assumptions of how we explain and kind of defined our experience with culture. So I thought that was kind of interesting because that's sort of what the author talked about as well. Just that, we have these perceptions and different ways of coming to a conclusion. And of course with the deep structure that involves just the intricate intricate ways and the different let's see, trying to find the word, I'm just drawing a blank on how to explain it. I'm better at writing it than talking about it, but just all the things that make our culture, the way we were raised, our family, our church, cooking, sports, everything that's kind of made us who we are, including even our personality. Um, and the text also mentions to learn to tolerate ambiguity, because and not take it personal, and that allows you again to kind of flow and adapt. And that's kind of what, at the end of the podcast, that's kind of what the author mentioned as well, that if you um, it's easy to be hard on yourself if you use humor like in the wrong context, and the very nature of being in a different culture and doing it wrong, that just makes it just kind of highlights it and makes it feel exemplified and kind of magnified, I guess. But just to know, just to let it go. Also, he mentions how humor, if you don't get the type of humor, you're kind of on the outside, whereas everyone on the inside is having fun and laughing together, and they're sharing that experience, and that's you know strengthening their culture, strengthening friendship, which I guess that's, inherent to culture. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and just that sense of, if you make a mistake, because we're all human, it's okay, just, know to just not be tough on yourself, because you're just going to become, more anxious and whatnot. And then also, page 97 mentions good social skills are critical to success and functioning in life. Things like, laughter, knowing when to laugh, when not, smiling, of course, as it mentions in the text, which humor and smiling, those types of things are kind of about the, within the podcast. Touch, talking versus silence. I think I already mentioned that. And just, holding, eye contact, um, speaking first, or waiting to be spoken to, and is what places should we talk versus what we shouldn't. Like a funeral, we would act differently or might speak differently across all cultures, not only just America, than we would at a celebratory type of an event, such as a wedding reception, for example, or a bridal shower or something. So those are some things that kind of stood out to me, and I just thought it was he just took one aspect of humor, something that's understood and appreciated, because it lightens the mood, it reduces anxiety, it helps build and bond, helps people bond together, just how important it is. But he also mentions, I can't remember if I stated this already, but um, upon doing a little test as far as showing photographs of folks smiling specifically, in Germany, those that were seen as smiling more were viewed as more as like having a higher intelligence. In Poland, he mentions that people may think you're stupid. In one of the Middle Eastern countries, he mentioned that was viewed as more smiling was viewed as being less intelligent. So I just thought those were interesting. But in conclusion, I think it's important to to appreciate something as simple like that, a simple attribute as humor, but just know, even in America, like not everyone shares the same sense of humor. I know my supervisor kind of had an occurrence with a subordinate where he got a little kind of sassy, or what she felt as disrespectful, and he kind of made the comment, what, you don't like dry humor? And just he's kind of blunt and kind of rude, and it can come across as a little crass and just kind of just that subordinate, kind of blunt and just a little bit arrogant. But and that's just in America, within an organization. Of course, all jobs, all schools, like, families, everyone has kind of their own, culture, not just this, culture. It's so easy to think of culture as, your your ethnicity or race, but it's, much bigger than that. So, yeah, I thought this podcast was pretty good. Again, it's Intercultural Guide to Humor by Peter Paluta. So, yeah, Thank you very much.